of the disease. Last year, 8 people who were trying to increase awareness about the virus was killed by Guineans who believed they'd come to their village to spread the disease. One of the world's most successful sportsmen, the American golfer Tiger Woods, is taking an indefinite break from the game. He says he is not good enough to play in tournaments. And the starting point for the world's best-known dog sled race, the Iditarod in Alaska, has been moved nearly 500 kilometres further north this year because of a lack of snow on the south. Organisers say they took the decision because some of the most treacherous sections of the 1,000-mile-long trail were now just bare ground. And that is the BBC News.
Hello again from me, Hugh Ferris. Coming up in the next half an hour on Sport Today, Chelsea are still 7 points clear at the top of the English Premier League, but only just.
Approaching stoppage time here. It's up in the air. There's the punch from Howard, who's been excellent. Willian shoots, deflected and in! And Chelsea score in the last minute. 1-0 Chelsea.
Well, he should have been happy, but we'll find out why Jose Mourinho walked out on our reporter after the match. And New York is all set to host the NBA All-Star Game with the city's own team in disarray.
People have voted in Sports Illustrated that he is the worst owner in sports. It's tough to find people who will say this guy is a good owner.
We'll be live in New York to find out what a group of Knicks fans is doing to try and get rid of their team's owner. But first, after withdrawing from 3 of his last 8 tournaments, Tiger Woods says he's not good enough to play competitive golf. He's decided to take an indefinite break after pulling out midway through his first round in California last week.
Well, it's frustrating that it started shutting down like that. You know, I was ready to go. I had a good warm-up session the first time around, and then we stood out here and I got cold, and everything started deactivating again. And it's frustrating that I just can't stay activated.
Well, earlier I spoke to our golf correspondent Ian Carter, who told me it's another worrying development for the former world #1.
It's a vicious circle. His problems run very deep, really, in golfing terms. Fitness, form, and technique as well are all under the microscope at the moment. And to use phrases like "my golf is not or is unacceptable at this stage" shows a vulnerable side to Tiger Woods that we've rarely seen in the past. And as he heads away to the driving ranges of Florida to try and rectify these problems, you are left to wonder when we will see him again and whether he can ever be the force that he was again. Those are inevitable questions that have to be asked now.
So what do you think indefinite means, Ian?
Well, it's how long is a piece of string. It could be that he finds the formula over the next couple of weeks and comes back and plays in the Honda tournament, which is what he wants to do in West Palm Beach at the end of this month. However, if he's not the game and he doesn't have the confidence in the game, then we won't see him there. That will mean that he won't qualify. It's highly unlikely that he will qualify anyway for the first World Golf Championships event at Doral at the start of March. So all of a sudden, his season has been decimated right at the start, and by that stage you're less than a month away from the Masters. Now, he's been loath to miss that for the second year running, but equally he wouldn't want to go there and have his game exposed and put himself up for ridicule. So this vicious circle is continuing for Tiger Woods. He's taking this break from competitive action to try and reverse the cycle, if you like, as far as that's concerned. We'll wait to see whether that's possible.
He's achieved so much, Ian. He's only 39, which by golfing standards doesn't necessarily mean the end of your career, but how many setbacks do you think he can withstand?
Well, you just wonder, don't you? Because they're coming thick and fast, and every time he tells us he's made progress, the evidence of his scoring and his play and the way that his body stands up to the rigors of playing tells a completely different story. You say he's only 39, yes, that is relatively young for a competitive golfer. But Tiger Woods approached the game of golf like no other golfer before. He approached it as an elite athlete, punishing gym regimes, all of that sort of thing. And if you look at other leading athletes in other sports, well, when you get to the age of 39, you're more or less done. The fear has to be that has taken a toll on Tiger Woods, and the explosive athletic style of his golf is just no longer possible with a body that has been pounded for so long.
So it sounds to me, Ian, like you're suggesting it's not even the beginning of the end, it might be a little bit further down that road.
Well, we may be in the middle of the end. Who knows? What I think it is fair to say is that turning this around, and if he is able to turn it around, there's been a player, very few players, if any, who've had more mental strength than Tiger Woods. But if he does turn it around to this position and become competitive again in the biggest events in the world, well, that will sit alongside any of the achievements that he's had in a glittering career that has yielded 14 majors.
That's our golf correspondent, Ian Carter. Let's talk to Brian Taylor, presenter on Real Golf Radio, who joins us now live from Utah. Hello, Brian.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may well indeed be. Now, golf used to be basically all about Tiger Woods. Perhaps not so much anymore, but does the PGA Tour still suffer every time that Tiger's missed it?
Yeah, there's no player like Tiger Woods on the PGA Tour that can move the needle, as you would say, to get the fan interested in watching. There's so many sports fans out there that will tune into golf if Tiger's playing, and if he's not, they just assume tune into something else. So Tiger is still the number one draw in the game of golf on the PGA Tour, and certainly when he's not playing well, it's tough. I think that's why you see most of the media, even when Tiger is playing and he's not playing well, they still focus on Tiger Woods because he is so popular. So yeah, having him out of the game is tough. Right now it gives something to talk about, so it does provide that, but on the golf course it hurts, and sponsors look forward to having Tiger in the field from a Pro-Am standpoint, from a sponsorship standpoint, and not having him there is a real blow to the tour.
What do the other players think about it? Because there's always a lot of hullabaloo about Tiger, and you mentioned the crowd comes to see him. So how do they feel about the fact that we're concentrating so much about whether he's playing or not playing?
Well, I think that's been always the case. I think sports is about stars, and even my co-host Bob Casper, his father Billy Casper, who just passed away, he often got overlooked for Arnold Palmer or Jack Nicklaus during those times, Gary Player and the like. So I think that's pretty normal. I think that whether it's about the Watson contention or Billy Horschel, Ricky Fowler joked after San Diego that as soon as Tiger withdrew, 90% of the gallery left, including all of the media, and they just chuckled to themselves, and they realize where Tiger's place is in the game, and that's at the very top. And so I think for the players understand the importance that Tiger brings. They understand the financial gain that they get because of what Tiger Woods has done. And so I think for the most part, they're taking Tiger's side and wishing him the best.
The financial implications, though, for Tiger, Brian, we heard Ian Carter mention this, maybe the middle of the end for him. Are there any issues that he might have if he doesn't play about continuing sponsorship here?
Yeah, that's interesting. When he got in the scandal and the problem several years ago, he did lose sponsors. But to this point in time, it's all been health-related. Nike stuck through the worst part of it, I think, and I don't suspect that they would jump ship at this point in time. I think, like we just talked about, to the very points, I think Nike stays on board. They certainly focus on their other athletes that they have, but Tiger is still very, very important to the success of Nike Golf, and I think the rest of the sponsors will maintain and hang on with Tiger as well. He just surpassed Phil Mickelson again as the number one paid golfer, over $50-some million a year, and I expect that he'll continue to have that for the foreseeable future.
Brian, extraordinary amounts of money. Thank you. Brian Taylor from Real Golf Radio, joining us there live from Utah. Let's move on sport today, and we'll look back at Wednesday's matches in the English Premier League in just a moment. But first, just as they were kicking off, another team was sacking their manager. Paul Lambert has left Aston Villa. In the week, they dropped into the relegation zone, even though it's just a matter of days since his chief executive, Tom Fox, gave this answer to the BBC when asked whether Lambert's future was indeed in doubt.
I think the answer to that is unequivocally no. I think actions speak louder than words, and I think we've been very supportive of Paul. We've supported him in this transfer window. We're supporting everything he's trying to do out of Bodymoor Heath with additional hires on both the recruiting side and data analysis side. We're spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to support Paul.
Now, Pat, bearing in mind what Tom Fox told you there and your understanding of the situation, fair to say you're a bit surprised that Lambert was sacked?
I am, but at the same time, you always leave yourself some wriggle room in these circumstances, and with the relegation trapdoor looming and also losing badly to Arsenal 5-0 after that interview, decent enough performance against Manchester United, but nothing special. Still lost. And then a pallid display against Hull, losing 2-0 and then dropping into the bottom three. Villa lost 3 in a row after that interview, which was 2 weeks yesterday. So I think it's only fair to say that Tom Fox and Aston Villa, therefore, they're entitled to review the situation when and how they see it. And Tom Fox was charged with responsibility. He took over in September the 1st as Chief Executive Officer by Randy Lerner to be his eyes and his ears at the training ground and to look at what's going on and judge accordingly.
And Pat, would you say this is not a club with just a managerial problem? There are ongoing issues that will affect and have affected Paul Lambert, but will affect the new manager as well.
So many ongoing issues. Tom Fox maintains that they should be about 7th or thereabouts in the pecking order financially, the amount of money coming through, and therefore they should be challenging like top. The Villa have trod water since Martin left in 2010. This is 7 years of final relegation. Can't see that coming. And the CEO has got a big task on his hands whereby he can turn the ship around. Villa are, of course, a big club, but there's been a lot of underutilisation of their playing resources. They really haven't done themselves justice at all, apart from Martin O'Neill's 3 successive top 6 finishes.
And Pat, so we've been asking people on our Facebook page today, who next? What do you think?
Well, a lot of reputable candidates aren't available to the summer. I do believe the important question is the interim appointment, not the long-term managerial appointment, i.e. get them through 13 games, 39 points maximum to avoid the dread of relegation, which has not happened to Villa since 86-87. I believe somebody in the short term has got excellent coaching credentials, but you need to unpick the lock and make these good players, decent squad this one, play better, free the spirit and create some score chances. I think somebody like Glenn Hoddle, who's available, he may have had man management issues in the past, but he's an outstanding creative, innovative coach. Only recently he was involved in the Premier League stuff ranges and he's now available. I think somebody like Hoddle, short term, would be a good appointment, certainly re-energise the situation with his imagination. And then we go again and do the due diligence in the summer and see if we get the right man.
And Pat, you spar with many Premier League managers in your role as a football reporter for the BBC, but I think you might miss Paul Lambert, mightn't you?
I do my best as a reporter to try to get information that the supporters would like to hear, so I'm not sure if that means I'm deliberately combative. I don't believe I am. I will miss Paul Lambert because during all the time I've known him since June 2012, he'd never ducked a press conference, always there, always took it, we always had a laugh afterwards. We knew the situation, and I admire the fact we never complained about Randy Lerner, we never slacked his players off, and we had some good jousts, and I wish all managers could take the thick skin and the sense of humour that Paul Lambert did.
Pat, thank you very much indeed. Yes, you may well miss Pat versus Paul. You can hear a little of their sparring over the years. It's on our Facebook page right now. Just search the BBC Sports World and we'll consider your potential replacements for Paul Lambert a little later in the show. Next to another manager who's known to be pretty combative with his inquisitors as well. That's Jose Mourinho, of course. Chelsea won 1-0 against Everton on Wednesday to keep their 7-point lead over Manchester City, who also won at the top of the Premier League. But despite Willian's dramatic late winner, focus after the match was on an incident involving Branislav Ivanovic, who seemed to move his head towards James McCarthy during something of a melee.
So emotional and things happen so quickly, but when you see that melee afterwards, if you see that one of your players has done something wrong, will you take action if they have done anything wrong?
Sorry,
and off he went, leaving the BBC's Jonathan Pearce standing there on his own. He did, though, return to Jose to finish the interview 5 minutes later, but also threatened to walk out of his post-match news conference if he was to ask him questions about the Ivanovic incident. Former Chelsea winger Pat Nevin was at the game for the BBC. Earlier he told me he understands why Mourinho might indeed be so mad, and that in dealing with it, he would have known exactly what he was doing.
An interview or whatever, an interview. No, I think he's putting himself in a position just now. I do mean, and partially, Jose is an intelligent man, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows the effects of what he's doing a lot of the time. I also think it's not all pure effects. underneath it all, he strongly believes that some areas of the media are targeted. Now, I actually don't think BBC is one he's particularly thinking of when he's thinking that his team is being targeted, but he realises that, if anything comes up in a game, it has now been aimed towards Chelsea, he feels. Now, if that's the case, there's two things you do. Number one, you make sure you tell everybody else what the other incidents are, which could have been brought up, which in a fair world in his eyes and in Chelsea's eyes should have been brought up. And the other point is, put a bit of pressure back on their ability to go, right, I think you're targeting us. I'll have a look at everything closely. And if I find you're not having fair credit with us and you're treating us more harshly than others, then I'll be first on it. And it means it's not quite so easy to have a go at Chelsea. So it's an intelligence, it's a knowledge, it's also a gut feeling, it's everything. It's like a number of great managers before, some of whom I've worked with.
It reminds me, I don't know if it reminds you, about Sir Alex Ferguson in Manchester United's heyday. He would play this game where everybody was very aware of his priorities, which were essentially his own team and against the world. It's Jose Mourinho basically being Sir Alex Ferguson Mark II when he manages himself.
There are definitely some similarities, and there's no embarrassment about that. I mean, Fergie was the best he lived, and that you have to do at your hand to do this to make sure that you can win. And that's exactly what Sir Alex did. I worked under him for a while, and whatever was usable was fair game. And certainly he's known that. He said often, Jose Mourinho, that he thought that Sir Alex was almost the godfather, the father of great management. And if you look at his trophy haul, it's hard to argue against that. That's absolutely phenomenal. But it's not just about getting good players, it's not just about tactics. Yes, it's mostly about that. But the other side of it is making sure that the other little areas that might give you 1% more or less, i.e. what happens with you and the authorities, what happens with you and the media, what to some degree happens with you and the officials as well. You have to make sure that you don't want them to bend over backwards. On your favour, but what you want to be their question with. And if any time there are, or even Mourinho thinks that's not happening, he will try and rebalance that.
And if his manner off the pitch reflects Sir Alex Ferguson, on it, his team is starting to as well. A last-minute winner against Everton on Wednesday proves that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite often the case, isn't it? People said to me after the last-minute winner at Everton, your team Chelsea were lucky, weren't they? Don't you say, it's funny how these teams get lucky all the time, these teams get a really big victory. Really ready to fight all the way to them. There's a number of reasons why teams get those goals, but the disaster is quite often it's easier to score a goal in the last minute than it is in the first minute, because you feel that they're tired. Slowly but surely, as the game goes on, those little moments get wider and wider, those little gaps get wider and wider, and it's no surprise. There's also the self-defeating mechanism on the back to the game goes on. So there's good psychology involved by teams that are very good at the top and do score these late goals. So you may feel lucky, but it's amazing how often you get lucky. They be very good in these tactics for sure.
That's Pat Nevin. Just before we move on, one story from the Premier League that's broken in the last hour or so. Chris Ramsey has been made Queen's Park Rangers manager until the end of the season, and has been caretaker boss after Harry Redknapp resigned earlier this month to have knee surgery. Yet another story of an interim manager in the English Premier League. You're listening to Sport Today on the BBC World Service. Brazilian Paralympic champion Alan Oliveira says he would like to see arch-rival Oscar Pistorius return to the track. Pistorius is of course currently serving a 5-year sentence and his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp could be released as early as August. Paralympic reporter Nick Oak has been to see Oliveira and joins me now. Nick, tell us a little bit more about this rivalry.
They're both below-the-knee entities who run on prosthetic blades, so their matchup was perfect, which often don't get in Paralympic sport. Now, Pistorius always had the better of Oliveira right when they started competing together around the time of the 2008 Beijing Paralympics. And at that point, Oliveira frequently spoke about how he'd been inspired by Pistorius and they were actually friends, but that certainly changed. Oliveira began closing in on Pistorius' best 2011 World Championships, and then at the London 2012 Paralympics, Brazilian stunned himself. Now sprinted him on the line in a T44 200 metre final. That was an event Pistorius had won at the previous two Paralympics. He didn't take it well. I don't know if you recall, but he criticised all about his athletic legs. He said they were too long. He later apologised for that, but his tone had certainly. Now that duel was expected to be one of the main attractions at last year's World Championships, but obviously that didn't happen after Pistorius' arrest. As we know, he's still in prison at the moment, but that hasn't stopped Oliveira from dreaming about winning.
I think that justice has been served and is being served with everything that the courts have said and what's happened there. It's a shame for sport that happened there. It was really great to run alongside him once again. It was he took Ireland to the sport of the world. It's difficult for him to return. I'm not saying he won't, but it's also difficult for him in terms of his age and how he may be feeling. But I wish he'd come back and that we could run a few more times together.
Nick, we put a picture of Alan Oliveira from your meeting on our Facebook page. I think people may be a little bit surprised to see how much weight he's put on since we saw him at the London Games. What prospect is there of him actually competing at a high level anytime soon?
Well, Oliveira is a confident man. It's backed up, I suppose, by the 3 world titles he won last year, and he's insisting he's training hard to get back to his best. But there are those who say he's been led astray by his new girlfriend and enjoyed a little bit too much of the celebrity lifestyle that his fame has brought. And it's fair to say, if you look at that, he's a lot bigger, a lot heavier than he was back in his prime in 2012 and 2013. Brazilian coaches there concerned, as are Paralympic coaches, are supposed to be one of the main attractions for the Rio Games, the home favourite capable of winning multiple honours, can galvanise support and bring in that home crowd. He's a long way from that at the moment. I mean, Oliveira also spoke to me about wanting to follow in Pistorius' lead really and compete at the Olympics in the future. There is realistically no prospects of that at the moment. He's far from his best. He can do so much training. He needs to do so much training over the next 12 months just to be fantastic Paralympics, let alone the Olympics. He's targeting 2 gold medals though at the Paralympics, maybe even 4 if he can get the relay right as well. And he says a break from the sport was crucial to that preparation.
Realmente precisava dessa pausa para que eu pudesse. My body really did need this break to rest properly. I am certain that I am doing everything, putting in 110% to be able to return extremely well, and by competing at a high level once again. Preparations have already begun. Mas I didn't really think about stopping or giving up. I really needed to rest my body and mind. That's why I put everything into it without injury. Too sick.
Yes, absolutely. Our Olympics reporter Nick Hope. Nick, thank you very much indeed. Now, you might have been really unhappy with the way that your favourite team is being run, but have you ever asked him to sell up and buy your nearest rivals? That's what one group of New York Knicks fans have asked the man who runs their team to do. I've been speaking to Jason Capel from the website knicksforsale.com, who's been explaining to me why he doesn't like owner James Dolan.
All this nonsense that you always hear about Dolan, and now more recently, he sent the fan where he basically said, if you don't like what I'm doing, why don't you go root for the Nets? And as fans of the Knicks, as loyal supporters, we just feel like to say that to a fan, or to say that to a fan is just so out of line. We pour our money out, we cheer our hearts out for this team, and we want our owner to understand that we're not happy with the way that he's doing things, and to respond to a fan like that, we dealt with an attack on all fans. This website was responsible to that as well.
How much support are you getting, and do you genuinely think that you might get enough to go beyond the billboard even?
We've been up for about 2.5 days now. We've raised, I believe, just under $2,500 so far. So we're off to a good start for sure. We do plan on continuing to promote the cause, and we have some creative ways we're going to be doing that with the next phase, especially with the All-Star game that's going to be in town. There's a lot of spotlight on New York City, so we're going to try and really promote what we're doing outside of the arena in any way as we can. And, we hope to bring in the $20,000. It will be enough to pay for the billboard and a couple other things, that we have planned.
So Jason was out with tonight, the owner of the New York Knicks, James Dolan. The All-Star game, of course, at the home of the Knicks. But we're going to go to Brooklyn now and join our basketball commentator, Chris Mitchell. What do you make of this Knicks versus the fans story?
I think it's all-star timing. That's what it is. James Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, is not a very well-liked for sure. It's a story that the NBA will not like having hanging around their all-star weekend at all. But that said, I think it's going to disappear, float away eventually. I don't think it's James Dolan, but I think he's intentionally telling the Knicks. And I'm just going to go into the 7 Stars Deli in Brooklyn and pick up a copy of the New York Post here and the Daily News. And if you just flick through these, you'll see the story is off the back pages, it's off the front pages. I think we've got other things to talk about right now. It's a good distraction. I think the thing that Jason was saying, that the world's media are coming here, that are sending on Manhattan in just a few days' time, that is potentially tricky because a lot of questions will be asked of Commissioner Adam Silver why he only gave James Dolan a reprimand for his rather and didn't come down hard on him. So he might have to fend off some questions. If he does, the story may reappear again. But the bottom line is, the Knicks are not for sale. Are you the owner of the shop, sir? I see you're stacking some nuts and some fries there and some chips. The All-Star coming to New York, do people care about it?
Excuse me?
The All-Star, the NBA All-Star, do people care about it coming here?
I have no idea.
You see, that's another problem, perhaps a bigger one for the NBA. We're in New York. The All-Star hasn't been here since 1998. And New York's a big place. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of things to get distracted by. I'm not sure that the All-Star weekend has grabbed people's attention yet. This man's buying a bit of cake. Let's quickly ask him. Hang on. The All-Star weekend. Are you interested?
I've played.
Hey, now this is better. What were you, point guard?
That was everything.
You better leave it there. Cheers, you.
Meet neuroscientist Professor Ray Daly.
There is a huge connection between the body and the brain.
He talks to A.T. Grayling and takes questions from an audience. Exchanges at the Frontier on the BBC World Service. Online at bbcworldservice.com/exchanges.
Still to come today on the BBC World Service.
On Science in Action at 1930 GMT, 2015 is the International Year of Light, and we look at how lasers are being used to slow down the atoms in atomic clocks. The newsroom is next.
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.